Early on fall morning somewhere in the highlands of Britain, you might find a creature small enough to sit on your fingernail that is wearing a crown, or maybe with very full eyelashes. It has a ring of slender forward curving spines arranged around the raised platform that holds its eyes. The animal is called Megabunus diadema. It is a harvestman belonging to the group opiliones, not a spider. It is among the most beautiful arachnids in Europe, and very few people have studied it or even know it exists. Most of the people who have encountered Megabunus diadema have done so without realizing it. In Britain, Ireland, Scandinavia, and the mountains of Central and Northern Europe, it inhabits the upland heaths, rocky grasslands, and damp woodland edges that hikers pass through on their way to more notable destinations. It is tiny. The body is roughly 4 to 6 millimeters long, about the size of a large seed, and it presses itself close to vegetation and rock surfaces during the day, relying on stillness and its mottled coloration to avoid detection. But find one and look closely, and the crown of spines around the eye turret is unmistakable. It's a structure so distinctive it has defined the animal's scientific name. Harvestmen as a group are one of the great overlooked animal groups of the temperate world, although they are fairly well studied in the tropics of South America. They are not spiders, despite their 8 legs and general spiderish appearance. The opiliones are old and distinct. Their fossil record extends back some 400 million years. They are easily recognized as their body is a single oval unit, unlike other arachnids, and there are roughly 6,600 species. But Megabunus diadema is the jewel of northern European species. The species name diadema is Latin for crown, referring directly to the ring of spines on the eye turret. The genus name Megabunus was coined considerably later and refers to the relatively large size of the eye tubercle. The genus currently contains around a dozen described species, mostly restricted to the uplands of Europe, especially the Alps. Megabunus diadema is the most widespread and best known of them. Several close relatives inhabit the higher Alps, confined to a single mountain or valley, tiny populations separated from each other by the glacial history of the Ice Age. Megabunus diadema is a creature of the cool, wet margins of the continent. Its core distribution runs from Iceland in the northwest, through the Faroe Islands, across Britain and Ireland, and south through the uplands of France and the Iberian Peninsula. It is most abundant at altitudes over 200 meters, and absent or very rare in the warm, dry lowlands of southeastern England and continental Europe. In Britain, where the species has been most consistently surveyed, the strongholds are in the upland moors of Wales, northern England, and Scotland. Within these broad habitat types, it occupies a specific microhabitat layer, the ground surface and the immediate vegetation layer just above it, where it hunts, shelters, and eventually reproduces among the stems and litter. The association with cool, wet upland conditions is not merely a preference. It seems to be a physiological requirement. Harvestmen as a group are highly vulnerable to drying out. Their exoskeletons are less waterproofed than other arachnids, and they lose water rapidly in dry conditions. Megabunus diadema, as an upland specialist of the coastal northwestern fringe of Europe, is likely among the most desiccation-sensitive harvestmen, and this places a hard ceiling on where it can survive. This creature is compact, with a body that is mottled amber that breaks up its outline and provides effective camouflage in the lichen-covered rocks and dead grass stems it usually haunts. The legs are relatively short compared to the extreme thread-like legs of the eupnoid daddy longlegs of North America. Its defining feature, however, is the eye turret and its crown of spines. In most European harvestmen, the eye turret, or ocularium, is a modest raised bump with eyes on either side. In Megabunus diadema, it is elevated into a distinct pillar-like structure, and around its upper rim runs a complete ring of forward curving spines, typically 4 to 8 evenly spaced. No British harvestman presents anything like it, and among European opiliones as a whole, only the alpine relatives in the genus Megabunus show comparable ocularium design. The function of the spined ocularium is, in characteristic Harvestman fashion, almost completely unknown. The most plausible hypotheses are that the spines make it harder for predators to seize the eye turret, one of the more vulnerable structures on the Harvestman's body, or they play a role in intraspecific recognition or signaling, possibly relevant to mating. The fact that closely related alpine species show variation in the number of spines and the arrangement of them across populations suggests that the structure may also carry some sort of species recognition information, a kind of identity signaling which distinguishes Megabunus species from each other across the zones that they overlap. But none of these hypotheses have been tested. Of all of the unusual features of Megabunus diadema, perhaps the most profoundly strange is its reproductive system. In most sexually reproducing animals, the sexes exist in roughly equal numbers. In Megabunus diadema, this picture is radically disrupted. Males are extremely rare across the species' entire range. The explanation for this is parthenogenesis, a kind of clonal or self-fertilizing reproduction without fertilization. The females of Megabunus diadema are capable of producing viable eggs from unfertilized ova, and these eggs develop into females that are genetically near identical copies of their mothers. The species does not appear to require mating to reproduce, and in most populations, reproduction proceeds entirely or predominantly through this asexual route. Whether males exist in sufficient numbers to fertilize some eggs in some locations, or whether the species has effectively abandoned sexual reproduction entirely across most of its range, remains unsolved. The rarity of males makes systematic study of reproduction difficult. Ecological studies confirmed this pattern. Across multiple sampling seasons, the population was overwhelmingly female, with males either absent from samples or present at frequencies of single-digit percentages. This pattern has been reported so consistently across different countries and habitats as to be treated as a biological characteristic of the species rather than some anomaly. Among European harvestmen, this places Megabunus diadema in a very small club. Females lay eggs in batches, depositing them among leaf litter or directly into soil in moist microhabitats. Clutch sizes of eggs are approximately 30 per batch, with females potentially producing multiple batches across a season. Eggs are deposited singly or in small groups rather than a structured egg sac like spiders, and the female provides no parental care. This absence of parental care is the base condition in opiliones. Unlike some tropical harvestmen that sit on their eggs for weeks, the eupnoi as a group have not evolved egg guarding, and Megabunus follows this pattern. Adults appear in greatest number from late summer through fall. This pattern is consistent with species overwintering as adults rather than dying after breeding in autumn, as many annual European harvestmen do. Megabunus diadema appears to persist through the winter, probably in sheltered microhabitats. Where they shelter, how they respond to low temperatures, and if there is any winter activity have not been studied for this species. Megabunus diadema's distribution in some of the coldest and most exposed habitats in Britain suggests a cold tolerance that would allow extended activity into cooler periods, though. So what does Megabunus diadema eat? Unfortunately, almost nothing has been documented. The only published dietary observation is from a 1949 record of the species consuming chironomid midges. No other prey items have ever been recorded in the literature for this specific species, and no systematic dietary study has ever been conducted. It is worth acknowledging the scale of what remains unknown about Megabunus diadema because it's not trivial. There is no published population density estimate for any site in its range. There is no systematic dietary study. The precise mechanism of parthenogenesis is not known. The function of the spined ocularium remains hypothetical. This species' overwintering strategy, including the responses to low temperature, is undocumented. The degree to which different populations across the species range are connected or isolated has never been looked at. And this animal is not rare. In specific habitats, it can have high local abundance. It's just that it is narrowly distributed and narrowly specialized in a way that leaves it with limited options. Megabunus diadema is one of the most accessible research subjects for Western European arachnology, and it sits unstudied, not because it is obscure or difficult, but because Harvestmen as a group have simply not attracted the research attention their biology merits.